election. It was all the gender stuff, the insistence that men can have babies and such. And now I fear that we like the terrorists is the new that. Liberals need to push back on the dumb ideas that come from their children. The Democrats' problem is the energy of the parties with the young and the young are with the terrorists. That's not good. So talk to your children and remind them, you don't really want to live like your heroes in Hamas. All the shit you do all day, it was all made in America. Your smartphone, your Grubhub, your freedom to bitch about America, that's all American stuff. You tell your phone you want a milkshake and a guy brings it to your house. Please, you couldn't survive a week living in Intifadaville.
BillMaher just shredded Bernie Sanders' dream of ever becoming president, and it was brutal. As talk of 2028 heats up, Sanders' name is once again being floated as a possible Democratic frontrunner. But Maher isn't buying it. He slammed Bernie as too woke, too radical, and full of hypocrisy. On a recent HBO episode, Maher laid out a scathing list of reasons why a Sanders ticket is dead on arrival. If you're into no-holds-barred political takedowns, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's get into it.
This week that the Supreme Court is looking at Biden's giveaway to people who own debt.
Giveaway is your term, not my term.
Well, they have college debt. Well, yeah. Okay, and we're going to give them money.
We're going to forgive debt.
Well, we're arguing about the same thing, but there's no argument. We're giving the money away. Okay, so I just want to read you this. And again, this is against why people sometimes, I think, question some of what you're saying.
We'll get into the student loan forgiveness fiasco in a minute. But first, check out BillMaher's reaction when Bernie Sanders tried to play the semantics game. Maher said the government was basically giving away money to people with student loans. Sanders jumped in to correct him, insisting the government would simply forgive the debt. Different word, same outcome. And that's Maher's whole gripe with the left, constantly fixating on language instead of tackling the real issue. Anyway, let's roll the clip.
There's a survey, student loan forgiveness recipients. 73% of applicants say they are likely to spend their extra money on non-essential, including vacations, smartphone, drugs, and alcohol. They admitted that to the pollster.
Who is this pollster?
NBC News. 52% they are very likely to buy new clothing. 46% they would use the money for vacation and eat out at restaurants. This is why people have a thing about, I would never call it free money. Oh, I guess I just did. But
well, let me respond to that in two ways, Bill. You talk about giveaways. Under Trump, the Congress voted for $1 trillion in tax breaks for the richest people in this country and the largest corporations. That's a giveaway. We just increased military spending with very little discussion, I don't know if you know this, by $80 billion. Military industrial complex.
Including the Democrats.
Pardon me?
The Democrats vote for it too?
Yes, absolutely correct.
You could see BillMaher's patience wearing thin as the interview dragged on. The question was straightforward. When people get free money, many splurge on indulgences instead of necessities. Maher wanted Sanders' honest take, especially from someone who rails against capitalism while preaching socialism. But instead of answering, Sanders did what's become a staple of the woke playbook. He dragged Trump into it. It's the left's go-to deflection. Backed into a corner. Say Trump. Argument falling apart. Say Trump. As if that somehow excuses dodging the real question. It's tired, it's lazy, and Maher wasn't having it. You could almost hear him thinking, can we have a serious conversation without summoning the boogeyman every 5 minutes?
But that's socialism, the military. That's crony socialism.
Well, that's
right?
Crony capitalism.
But the military isn't capitalism. That's the government.
No, but it's who owns the military industrial complexes. All right, but anyhow.
Right.
All right. So when you talk about giveaways, you have major corporations in this country that make billions in profit, don't pay a nickel in taxes. Billionaires have an effective tax rate lower than that of a truck driver or a nurse. You have a generation, you talk about this younger generation right now. I got around the country and I talked to a lot of people. You know, I don't know anything about that poll, but I can tell you, I've talked to nurses who are working their asses off, doing the right thing. They leave school $70,000 in that. They can't afford now to get married and have children. They can't afford the housing that they desperately need. So the truth is, you got a generation that everything being equal, the younger generation will have a lower standard of living than their parents.
And that's absolutely true. Honestly, it's refreshing and a little surprising to find common ground with Sanders on this issue. If we can hand out tax breaks and carve loopholes for the ultra-wealthy, why can't we extend some relief to students trying to build a future? This isn't about freebies, it's about fairness and priorities. Students aren't asking for yachts or private jets, they are asking for a fair shot at life without being buried in debt before they even begin. The fact that we can subsidize billion-dollar corporations but balk at helping the next generation get an education without lifelong financial chains is absurd. If giving hardworking young people a better quality of life is considered radical, then maybe the system is far more broken than we want to admit. On this point, Sanders is right, and it's one of the rare moments where his ideals line up with basic co.
At an AOC Bernie Sanders rally in Idaho last month, someone threw a Palestinian flag over an American flag, and the crowd erupted in approval. What should have happened after that is one of the adults on stage should have told their young, loyal followers, this is not a symbol of freedom. This is.
Beyond quibbling over semantics, Bernie Sanders, clearly eyeing another run at the presidency, seems all too eager to embrace whatever woke narrative is trending. But sometimes it's not what he says, it's what he doesn't say that speaks loudest. Case in point, when the Palestinian flag was draped over the American flag, Sanders remained silent. Not a word. And this from a man who spent decades in politics, who should know full well what Palestinian regimes represent, a legacy of corruption, human rights abuses, and disregard for innocent lives. Yet Sanders often frames Hamas as the victim and America as the villain. That kind of moral confusion has become a defining trait of the far left. Whether it's pandering to a radical base or angling for votes, Sanders' refusal to condemn symbolic slaps in the face to America is as disappointing as it is dangerous. Real leadership requires clarity, not cowardice dressed up as compassion.
The thought leaders in the Democratic Party keep encouraging and not rebuking the idea that America is cringe and the people who run Gaza are great. The Democrats are doomed. Alyssa Slotkin's right. Liberals are weak and woke, especially the white ones, and they indulge all sorts of nonsense from their kids, a pattern that then continues on in the Democratic Party.
BillMaher didn't let up. He kept hammering the so-called thought leaders steering today's Democratic Party, with Bernie Sanders at the center of it all. His warning was blunt. Unless Sanders and his ideological circle make a drastic course correction, the party is headed straight for political extinction. And he has a point. It's easy to mistake echo chamber applause for nationwide support, but outside that bubble, voters are tuning out. That same miscalculation doomed Kamala Harris in the last election, confusing Twitter cheers with real momentum. Maher fears Democrats are on track to repeat that disaster. And if they don't snap out of it soon, they won't just lose elections, they'll lose relevance altogether. Americans aren't asking for hashtags and hollow slogans. They want real solutions. They want conviction, not endless pandering to fringe ideologies.
Last election, it was all the gender stuff, the insistence that men can have babies and such. And now I fear that we like the terrorists is the new that. Liberals need to push back on the dumb ideas that come from their children. The Democrats' problem is the energy of the party is with the young, and the young are with the terrorists. That's not good. So talk to your children and remind them, you don't really want to live like your heroes in Hamas. All the shit you do all day, it was all made in America. Your smartphone, your Grubhub, your freedom to bitch about America, that's all American stuff. You tell your phone you want a milkshake, and a guy brings it to your house. Please, you couldn't survive a week living in Intifada.
And this is exactly the kind of lesson Bernie Sanders and his allies should be passing on to the younger generation. Instead, the ideas being pushed on them aren't just misguided, they are dangerous for America's future. In their rush to champion what they see as justice, too many young people are aligning with the wrong factions and backing causes that run directly against American values. Sure, that activism might look like a short-term win for Democrats, but eventually, that same energy will turn against them. It's a ticking time bomb the left refuses to acknowledge. With his influence and decades in politics, Sanders had the perfect opportunity to set the record straight, to remind them that, for all its flaws, America remains a beacon of freedom compared to the terrorist-backed regimes they are now sympathizing with. But he didn't. And that silence speaks louder than words.
What do you think of the fact that the people who are getting the big crowds right now are AOC and Bernie Sanders? They're going around the country. Thank you, there's that same guy. I call him the always wrong guy. Okay, but I feel like, big crowds, again, the shiny object that the Democrats chase. It's not about the big crowds that come out to you when you're talking in a festival or wherever they are. I think it's because I think Bernie showed up at Coachella. That must have been fun for the fans. It's who shows up on election day. And I just don't see that's the ticket. I mean, Cory Booker, I know you've worked with him. I like Cory a lot from my home state of New Jersey. Made a speech for 25 hours. Again, just whacking each other off. This is just not what's going to get the job done.
BillMaher sees it clearly. Sanders and the far left are blinded by their own politics. It's a stubborn refusal to recognize flaws or course-correct before disaster strikes, a dangerous mix of arrogance and delusion. Take the whispers about a potential AOC Bernie Sanders ticket. On paper, it looks like a strategist's dream, a young Latina appealing to minorities and Gen Z paired with an older white male offering experience and credibility with older voters. Sound familiar? It should. Democrats already tried that formula with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And the result? An unenthusiastic base, a fractured message, and a campaign that stumbled instead of soared. The left keeps recycling old ideas, slapping on new faces, but missing the deeper point. Optics won't win elections. Voters want authenticity, clarity, and real leadership, not diversity checkboxes dressed up as strategy. And speaking of people demanding clarity and accountability, Joe Rogan had something to say. Check this out. Was the poll wrong?
Was the poll incorrect?
Yeah, the poll was wrong. So what?
What about the conversation that they had with Kamala Harris where they edited the answers that she had?
60 Minutes has a sterling reputation for investigative journalism.
That's not investigative journalism if you change someone's answers. If you ask her a question and she comes with a rambling answer that doesn't make sense and you edit that out.
Suing media has the impact of intimidating media.
No, but it's not that. It's deceptive editing.
I don't know.
You give people a different perception of who this candidate is than reality. But that's not objective journalism. Would you agree with that?
I don't know that I agree with your analysis of it.
I think that's universally accepted that that's what they did.
And the impact is clearly intimidation. He wants to defund public broadcasting. Why is that? Because they also would run critical stories of him.
They say things that are defamatory and factually incorrect. What other course does a person have other than a lawsuit?
I don't think that it is appropriate to be intimidating media.
Joe Rogan didn't hold back when he pressed Bernie Sanders over his claim that Trump was intimidating the media by suing 60 Minutes for their edit of Kamala Harris. We all know that story, so no need to rehash it. But Rogan cut to a bigger question, one Sanders conveniently dodged. What if the media edited a Trump interview to make him look smarter, sharper, and more coherent than he really was? Would Bernie shrug, roll his eyes, and fire off a few tweets? Or would he demand accountability, maybe even legal action, the same way Trump did? The double standard is glaring. When the media distorts Trump to make him look worse, it's called journalism. But when someone pushes back, suddenly it's intimidation. Sanders can't have it both ways. If he truly believes in a fair press, then media bias should be called out no matter who it helps or hurts. And that's why BillMaher's takedown of Sanders wasn't just a clash of personalities. It was a reality check for the Democratic Party. From political blindness to pandering woke rhetoric, Maher exposed cracks in the foundation. Sanders, once the voice of the working class, now looks more interested in appeasing fringe ideologies than offering real solutions. His silence on anti-American gestures, his word games over policy, and his refusal to call out extremist sympathies reveal a lack of leadership and moral clarity. Even when he's right, like on student debt, his message gets buried under spin. With talk of a Sanders AOC ticket in 2028, Democrats risk recycling the same failed strategies that have already cost them credibility. Maher's warning is clear. Unless the left wakes up, they won't just lose elections, they'll lose the country. The time for delusion is over, and that's where we'll wrap today's video. If you enjoy this breakdown, hit the like button, subscribe, and stay tuned for more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.